For decades, the expanded universe now known as Legends grew the world of Star Wars. Stories both big and small imprinted themselves in the reader's, player's, or viewer's mind. Novels, comics, games. For many fans, they enriched the universe and fed a desire that we all have for more and more Star Wars. Quote, "I don't read that stuff. I haven't read any of the novels. I don't know anything about that world. That's a different world than my world, but I do try to keep it consistent. The way I do it now is they have a Star Wars encyclopedia, so if I come up with a name or something else, I look it up and see if it has already been used. When I said other people could make their own Star Wars stories, we decided that, like Star Trek, we would have two universes. My universe, and then this other one. They try to make their universe as consistent with mine as possible, but obviously they get enthusiastic and want to go off in other directions." George Lucas, Starlog Magazine, August 2005, issue 337, close quote. The idea that George Lucas's vision was the vision found in the expanded universe, which is an idea that a lot of people in the post-Disney acquisition and post-Legends reclassification seem to have, isn't all that factual. Not really a sincere point. It's kind of a stance built on wish, rather than evidence. And hey, what's kind of great about Star Wars is that we can all pick and choose what stays and what goes in our own brains. Personal canon is a thing in the Star Wars fandom, and it's interesting. George Lucas kind of has his own personal canon too. His own canon, his universe, as he says. He picks and chooses what he wants to keep and what he wants to change. He would sometimes pull bits and pieces from the expanded universe and insert them into the prequel films, like names or a couple vehicles, not that much, but for example, Timothy Zahn named the planet Coruscant. To quote Timothy Zahn, quote, "Apparently when it came time to choose a name for the film, people persuaded George to go with Coruscant and be done with it. So I felt very vindicated, the tail wagging the dog. It was an honor to be slipped into the movies this way," close quote. Not to mention, the 501st Legion was originally created in 1997 by Albin Johnson as a costuming organization. Quote, "The real story behind the name 501st Legion is rather unremarkable. I wanted something that sounded military, had a big number, and ended in a 1 to give it a little authenticity," close quote. So the 501st Legion started as a fan group, and later the 501st Legion name was brought into Lucas canon. So there's a history of George Lucas picking names, ships, and even characters from the non-film material and making it Lucas canon. A few things, not that much. In 2014, Lucasfilm put out a press release wiping the slate clean and setting the record straight. Quote, "When he created Star Wars, George Lucas built a universe that sparked the imagination and inspired others to create. He opened up that universe to be a creative space for other people to tell their own tales. This became the expanded universe, or EU, of comics, novels, video games, and more. While Lucasfilm always strived to keep the stories created for the EU consistent with our film and television content, as well as internally consistent, Lucas always made it clear that he was not beholden to the EU," close quote. So while Lucas kept an eye on the EU, he never really had his fingers on the pulse. It wasn't his story, it wasn't his canon, it was separate from his Star Wars. He always held onto the freedom to rewrite and change as he saw fit. Quote, "And now there have been novels about the events after episode 4, which isn't at all what I would have done with it. The Star Wars story is really the tragedy of Darth Vader. That is the story. Once Vader dies, he doesn't come back to life. The Emperor doesn't get cloned, and Luke doesn't get married," close quote. So, the moral of the story. The EU was never really George Lucas's vision. It was more of a sandbox for people to come play in, to create their own stories using the universe that Lucas built. And Lucas, for the most part, ignored the vast majority of what was created, occasionally assimilating tiny details. That's about it. The EU, the Star Wars saga, has always evolved. It's always changed. Things have always been rewritten, overwritten, and completely retconned. The history of Star Wars canon is one that has always shifted. Boba Fett's backstory was way different in the expanded universe before the prequels existed. Were you mad about that? I wasn't. So all you can do is like the stories you like and pick and choose what stays in your own brain. Kinda like George Lucas. And just because some of the stories that you liked are now considered legends isn't anything new. Don't be mad. It's just Star Wars. HelloGreedo, out.